Hello, friends of Studio Brule. This is Steve Brule, and it is coffee time. Welcome to the show again. And I have to, whoops, see, I've got a wrong screen up here. Let me just correct that for you. There we go. Start out with my patriarchy card, which authorizes me to speak on all of the comings and goings of the feminist empire, which stretches its tentacles all the way around the world. So, first up, I have to apologize. I was certain that today was the day with Janice, but I looked back in our conversation and it's tomorrow. So those of you who were hoping to see Janice today, I have to apologize. I went and checked because I didn't see her coming into the show, and it turns out, yep, it's tomorrow. And I got the date wrong. So I'm going to reschedule this one for tomorrow, same time. And it's on the same topics, the Jordan Peterson hit piece. Many of you may have seen a good bit of information about that hit piece, written by a woman, something I keep, here we go, not Jessica, but I think they call her Decca Atkinhead. Yeah, Decca Atkinhead. Every time I see Atkinhead, my brain registers Airhead. So I decided to put that into the title of the video for a little comic relief. I hope that didn't offend anybody out there. So I'm not going to go into details about that conversation without Janice here. So we'll leave that one off for tomorrow. I do have some other stuff to share with you. And that won't be too terribly much stuff. But we're going to touch on Greta Thunberg's criminal conspiracy investigation into Greta Thunberg, of all people, the famous young girl who's a puppet for the climate change globalists who have been trying to scare the world into accepting global socialism for decades now. Also, I'm going to keep a tighter eye on the comments, and so during this session, because I'm thrown off of balance because I got the day wrong with Janice, I'll try to take questions from you directly, any topic, on anything you want. I'll do my best to give you my opinion or whatever, and we can try a little bit of conversation there. But first of all, let's start right into some of the material that I had not planned for today, but for another day. This material I haven't collected all of it I wanted to, but it's enough to talk about. So let's have a look here. Greta Thunberg's in the New York Post sparks criminal conspiracy probe in India with an accidental tweet. February 4th, just a couple of days ago. Let's have a look at what Greta Thunberg said. Reading from the top with me. Greta Thunberg accidentally shared a message showing she was getting told what to write on Twitter about the ongoing violent farmers' revolt in India, sparking a police investigation and a political firestorm, according to reports. This shouldn't surprise anybody, really, anybody who's been at least bit aware of what's going on around climate change and Greta Thunberg. She's been a puppet all along through this. I think she probably did have some initial strong feelings of her own, but the climate change team, or globalists who been trying to use climate change to get global socialism in, quickly found out about her and started pulling her strings, and so it's been pretty clear for a long time that Greta has just been repeating what she's told to say. So, yeah, good point there, Michael. I don't know if I like that comment. Steve is old. He has the right to confuse the dates. Well, I may not like it, but I can't argue with it. I am 61. It's no secret. Although, for those of you out there who might be approaching or getting older, even some people men might be afraid of getting older, I actually feel good about turning 60 a year ago. I think it's the best age landmark there is. You're actually kind of it's a stage of life where if you maintain your health, and I do encourage that every man out there places his health as his highest priority in life. And I say this without any kind of exaggeration, because you can't help anybody, not even yourself, if you lose your health entirely. So if people often say their kids are their highest priority, and that's hard to argue against, except for the fact that if your health goes, you're no good to your kids, you're no good to your family, you're no good to your friends, you may lose your job, you may lose everything if you lose your health. So do keep your health up. And one of the things I wanted to point out about turning 60 is that most of the really difficult responsibilities of life are you're starting to see them in your rear view mirror. And it's kind of a nice feeling. And provided though, of course, you have a little bit of resources aside to have a sense of humor and enjoy some of it. It doesn't take that much. And that's one of the reasons why I'm down in the Dominican Republic, is that it's less than half the price to have a good life down here. So most guys out there who've worked a good 35 years or so, maybe more, 40 years, probably have enough resources if they got rid of their things and got the money from house, sold your car, get rid of all your expenses. You can live a really nice life down here. I am moving into a different apartment. Sorry if this is a meandering session here, but it's just kind of rolling off the tongue. I'm moving into a new apartment. It's a 2-bedroom apartment here. It's a 3-story. There's 9 units, so 3 units per floor. It's very nicely done with tiles inside and granite countertops. Very, very nice apartment. I'm very excited about it. 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, ensuite bath, 2 sliding glass doors, a very long balcony. I may share some pictures with this when I get in there. It's not ready yet. They're still finishing construction on it. And the cost of that apartment is approximately $430 per month. 430. Something like that in Canada, in any reasonable sized city in Canada, is going to cost me $2,000 per month. So 2,000 Canadian. In the US, I'm not that familiar with the prices in the US anymore. I know they vary quite a lot, but you're not going to find a brand new building with granite countertops, security, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a good sized space in a secured, this gated building. So there's a sliding gate to go into the parking lot. $430 is approximately 550 Canadian dollars. So you're talking about a quarter of the price. Now let's talk about transportation. As many of you know, I bought a Chinese motorcycle which cost me a little less than $2,000, and it gets me everywhere I need to go. Certainly it's great for short trips around town, but I've taken it all over the island. All over the Dominican Republic. I haven't been into Haiti with it. I'm a little nervous about trying that. But the motorcycle insurance per year is little less than $10. And the motorcycle itself, all in, brand new, is approximately $1,850 or $1,900. So compare that to transportation in Canada or the US or virtually any first world country, and it's just there's just no comparison. You can live on less than half and twice as, I always think of it this way, I live here twice as well at half the price or less. And when I need a car, I rent it for the day. And there's several people who do small business rental cars here, and I can get a car for approximately $30 per day. Some cars $35 per day. If you get an old car from a local guy who rents out his cars, you might get it for $20 per day. I don't know if I really trust those cars enough to rent them and go to, say, the big city, Santiago or Santo Domingo or something like that. But the cost of living for any of you guys, and I went through a long long court cases with my son for custody. A battle with his mother was very expensive and cost me a job at many years ago. Cost me a job and I'd say it's almost 20 years ago now that I had to rebuild my life back from that. I got self-employed, and then I had a couple of contracts with the federal government to get back in gear. But through it, I managed to save enough to live a good life down here. And I highly recommend anybody who thinks that they can't retire in Canada or the US, think outside the box. There are drastically cheaper places to live. And if your work or any part of your work can be done online, you can supplement any incomes you have. For instance, I have this, which does not get me very much money, but it does supplement. So I use less savings because of this. The small amount, the donations that I get, the YouTube and Patreon really crashed the income. It was doing well for a while, but then I've talked about this before. Several different incidents happened that took drastically cut those incomes out down by 90% or something like that. So, having said that, I'm also my age. I'm eligible for Canada Pension Plan, which is not very much money. I think it's going to be $800 a month or something like that. And when I turn 65, there'll be another $400 or $500 a month in old age security. So you guys out there, I highly recommend, as soon as you can manage it, get out of the work prison of Canada and the work prison of the US, where they don't even like men anymore, especially white men, but all men. All men are the enemy of the West. They're just work slaves. That's what they want from you. And the feminists have played a very strong role in destroying the status of men in the West. So my view is, why stay where you're not wanted, even especially since it's so expensive to survive there. And the attitude is one of disdain, hatred. Get out. Get out as soon as you can. So let's get back. Sorry for the long side conversation there. Let's get back to the Greta Thunberg story. Reading from the top with me. The list gave a series of tips on what to post, asking her to also repost and tag other celebrities retweeting about it, including pop star Rihanna. Pop star Rihanna. She must be an expert on India's farmers' strike. These celebrities over there, they think they're an expert on everything, and of course, it's always they're always yipper yappering amongst one another and telling each other what socialist tweets to put out. As well as the Twitter storm, the toolkit she shared also suggested highlighting planned demonstrations at Indian embassies. Quite the puppet there these socialist leftists have in Greta Thunberg. And yet, so many of her followers just eat it right up. They just can't get enough of it. So I'm just trying to read over the questions here a little bit and comments. Housewife in the Woods says, we sold everything, jumped off the grid to the woods of northern Minnesota. I presume that is MN, or is that Montana? I can't keep these things straight. I think that's Minnesota. Intense, 2015. Built-in cash from the ground up, slow, but best decision ever. Wow, that's quite the adventure there. Congratulations. Are you serious? You lived in northern Minnesota in tents? That would be quite a story. I'm not sure I'm quite that adventurous. Let's move up here a little bit. There was somebody else that wanted to say something. And Michael says, is there any nation that still likes white men? The Dominican Republic does. They like, there's... it's a tense relationship, to be honest, because clearly they believe that all gringos are, a lot of people, not everybody in the Dominican Republic, but there are a lot of people that think that every gringo that comes here is rich. And if they have a little bit of experience with the gringos, as we're known here, they start to realize that, well, a lot of us suffer the same kinds of issues that they're familiar with here. Only the poverty level here is quite a lot worse than in the West. by a long shot. But it can be a very comfortable life here, and I've talked about this in the past in other sessions. There are issues that you need to deal with and be aware of, but none of the issues that I've come across are insurmountable. And when you get to know how to go about things here, the lifestyle is really quite good. And I'll give you an example. We're on like many countries, we have a curfew. And last curfew on the weekend is 5 p.m. Now I live in a little community of Costambar, and we have a group of friends here. And so one of my friends has a house on a hill with a beautiful view and invited us over to play dominoes. We played dominoes on his deck with a nice breeze coming in and had drinks last night. Played dominoes until about 10 o'clock at night, and then took the little 1-minute motorcycle ride back here. And that is fairly typical. The lifestyle I have to remind myself, if I ever get frustrated with things here, I have to remind myself what it was like before I came here. And that, there's no comparison. It's a big jump up in lifestyle. That doesn't mean your life is going to be perfectly happy every single day. You're still going to experience frustrations and regular little things, and nothing's ever going to be perfect all the time. But the difference is huge. And Wikipedia snippet says the Thailand Dan video is on Sunrise Hoodies channel. So there's a guy who was experienced in Thailand, I presume. So let's get on a little bit more with the Greta Thunberg thing. This is going to be a very kind of loose conversation today. I better get that off the screen. 1 second here. Okay, getting back to Greta Thunberg. The campaign material and social media template was created by Canada's Poetic Justice Foundation, which claims to be a grassroots group creating events to provoke, challenge, and disrupt systemic inequities and biases, the Times now said. The group's website confirms it is most actively involved in the farmers' protest. These international socialist groups are a bit concerning. They are actually fairly well organized, and they try deceitfully like this to make their movements appear to be grassroots, as if there's a broad support in the culture for what they're doing. There isn't. I think Black Lives Matter falls in that category too. Black Lives Matter was highly divisive, but the mainstream media kept up the idea and kept promoting the idea that these were the legit social justice people in the West, and protected them. And I don't think that Black Lives Matter really has the broad support that the media leads us to believe. But I could be wrong. Let's read on with this Greta Thunberg thing here. As well as the Twitter storm, the toolkit she shared also suggested highlighting planned demonstrations at Indian embassies. You can imagine that the Indian government and the international community would be upset with this. This is a manipulated kid, but she's age majority now, I believe. So she's playing along with this, and she's probably enjoying the spotlight and the attention she gets. She's a celebrity globally. And yet they're interfering with national affairs in India. And imagine if this didn't come to light, and people assumed that this was some kind of grassroots thing. Now, what's interesting about this incident is that it reveals just how the socialist communities, the socialists, get together, organize, and pretend that they represent a broad spectrum of society when they're just interfering with other countries' internal affairs. So it's kind of interesting to see how this is going to play out. Let's read on a little bit here. After deleting the list, Thunberg then shared a supposedly newer toolkit and a message saying, "We stand in solidarity with the farmers' protest in India." I'm willing to bet that Greta Thunberg doesn't know one darn thing about the issues surrounding the farmers' protest in India. Whether the farmers, I don't, and I wasn't going to even go and look into it. It just caught my attention because Greta Thunberg and her puppet masters have put her into the thick of things. So it turns out, let's move on. Oh, wait a second. Michael's got a comment on Germany here. Did Greta mention the farmer protest in Germany too? I don't know. I don't think Greta really comes out with anything on her own. I think she's been fed scripts since the big media people got their hands on her. What is it, 2 years ago now? I don't remember the timing. But Greta is just the face of these globalists. They're using her to push, to acclimate the people, to motivate the people to take this climate change more seriously. As I mentioned many other times, these climate change alarmists have been at this for 30 or 40 years, trying to convince the world's people, in the first world especially, that the only way we can deal with this existential crisis of climate change is to have a one world government with power in every country to tell you what to do. I've spoken and I made a video on one world government and its dangers and feminism's role in bringing it about. I suggest you have a look at that and give me the feedback. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that particular video. I'm concerned about it because there's some realities about the structure of a one world government. Nation states today are the only thing that keep leaders honest. When a nation gets too far out of line and abuses within or without their own country, then other nations speak up about it. They can create sanctions and they can offer sanctuary for refugees. Without a nation state as the highest state of power, if we have a one world government that has jurisdiction over the whole world, nobody has any place of refuge to go to if they criticize the government and the government doesn't like them and wants to stick them in prison. I want to take this moment to remind you that in 2011, on New Year's Eve of 2011, Barack Obama signed the defense bill which gave the U.S. president the legal right to detain any American citizen anywhere in the world without reason, without giving a cause, and without informing the media or anyone, and without any charge, and hold them indefinitely in an undisclosed location. This is the kind of power given to pharaohs and Genghis Khan and people like this. Hitler had that kind of power. The United States President, now Joe Biden, a committed socialist puppet of the elite, has that power on his word alone. That is law in the U.S. I'm surprised that more analysts don't complain about that law. It was never taken out afterwards. It also gives the U.S. President to do the same thing to any visitor of the U.S. within the U.S. borders. But American citizens can be apprehended anywhere in the world, according to American law, on the word of the President. So that's pure, outright dictatorship right there. Let's move on to what Greta is saying here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on the comments, and thank you for your support, John Banton. I appreciate that very much. And so let's read along here. We read this quote. Let's move to the next one. Delhi police on Thursday confirmed that it had launched a criminal case against the creators of the toolkit document that Thunberg shared. The call was to wage economic, social, cultural, and regional war against India, police said of the plot supposedly taken up by the celebs. They have a good reason to complain about this. These celebs and their cause, they don't even know the issues. This is what's so much about these socialists. They just all, like a flock of geese, they just turn and attack the whoever their leaders point them at. They're manipulated. And it's all about advancing socialism all the way around the world. Let's read from the top here. The investigation is focusing on the spreading of disaffection against the government, promoting hatred and criminal conspiracy, the agency said. One Indian minister, V.K. Singh, said that Thunberg's deleted tweet revealed the real designs of a conspiracy at an international level against India. He's actually right. That's right. I hope this goes somewhere. These groups have become too arrogant, too pushy, too domineering, too aggressive and abusive. BLM is another one. BLM was no grassroots movement. We all know that, and I did make a video on the get to know Black Lives Matter, and this was probably 6 or 8 months ago. Have a look at that. There's nothing. Black Lives Matter is not a black group. Black Lives Matter is a feminist group. They're funded and they have connections to socialists like the Venezuelan president. Have a look at that video if you like. They're very close to the Venezuelan president. At least they've met with him several times discussing various socialism issues. So one in this said that Thunberg's deleted tweet revealed the real design. Oh, I read that already. Sorry, folks. Let's read on to the next one here. Bollywood actress Kangana Ranaut even called the protesting farmers terrorists and Rihanna a fool. Well, that's not hard to believe. At least the Rihanna part. I have to confess, I don't know what's going on with the farmers' protest. The only thing that interests me here is how the puppets like Rihanna and Greta Thunberg getting caught lying, just parroting the words they're told to parrot, showing full force that they are nothing but faces and voices for the elite who put words in their mouths. Calling Rihanna a fool for her widely shared tweet that asked her 100 million Twitter followers, why aren't we talking about this? This is kind of a telltale sign of our culture. Rihanna has 100 million Twitter followers. And Rihanna probably doesn't even know where India is. Probably doesn't know what a farmer looks like. Let's move on here. Thunberg remained defiant Thursday, and I still quote, or rather, hashtag stand with farmers and support their peaceful protest, she tweeted Thursday morning. No amount of hate, threats, or violations of human rights will ever change that. Oh, the words of juvenile dictators. Can you imagine Greta Thunberg as a politician with power in the world? Ay. Let's move on. This is another take up on Bill Gates' investments. But before we go there, let me just scan through. Michael says, I need more coffee. I'll take that as an order, Michael. Thank you very much. So, all right, I can't read these too well here. All right, let me get on to the Bill Gates ownership investments in the U.S. Bill Gates, who famously says that and claims that he's retired to his philanthropy. No, Bill Gates will never stop trying to advance his power in the world. He's one of those highly driven but very, very slick, powerful men. Bill Gates owns the largest ownership stake at CN. That's the Canadian National Railway, for those of you who are not Canadians out there. This was published on February 4th, just a couple of days ago. And here it is. Bill Gates controls 16.36% stake in Canadian National Railway through Cascade Investment LLC and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust. Remember that we talked about Warren Buffett, who owns the railways that ship the oil. Now Bill Gates owns railways in Canada. And we just got a president in. We know Warren Buffett met with Biden. Didn't endorse him publicly, but did meet in private with Biden. And who knows who Bill Gates met with. But let's have a look at some of his actions here. Bill Gates now also owns railways. So is it just a coincidence that Biden gets in there and they rub elbows with these rich guys and suddenly the Keystone Pipeline is canceled, thus ensuring that the oil will travel by rail? Who knows? I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Reading from the top, most of those shares were acquired through Cascade Investment, an investment firm solely owned by Gates. Why would Gates create an investment firm just to put his investments in? I guess that's a way to disguise his ownership, perhaps, a way to protect income. I'm not sure. Cascade owns 101 million shares, a little bit more, or 14.28% of the railway, according to CNN Business. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust owns. I thought that was a charity. I thought the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was created to do all that work in Africa, the philanthropic work of helping humanity with vaccines and so on. But they own over 13 million, almost 14 million shares, or another 2.08% of Canadian National Railway. That's a lot. Combined, that is 16.36% ownership stake in CN. The next largest shareholder is Massachusetts Financial Services with 4.8%. Interesting. Warren Buffett, the world's seventh richest man according to Forbes, owns the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway Company, the largest freight railroad in North America according to Wikipedia. Reading from the top, Gates has more than $690 million tied up in farmland according to the Land Report. This is an interesting story too, and I've got a little more information on this farmland acquisitions of Bill Gates. But let's read on here. The vast majority of that land was accumulated in a 2017 deal when Cascade acquired a group of farmland assets from this was interesting to me, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board for $520 million. Canada Pension Plan sold holdings to Bill Gates of farmland. Isn't that interesting? And this has been going on for years. Gates has become keenly interested in food production in recent years, in particular with the vegetable protein business. For a philanthropist, he's awfully smart and strategic about buying up resources like this. To suggest that Bill Gates is retired is absolutely absurd. No, he is furthering his and increasing his power and influence in the world all the time. Not retired. Let's read on. He was one of the initial investors in Impossible Foods, Beyond Meat, and Memphis Meats. Gates was also an early backer of Hampton Creek Foods, which became Just Inc. So here we have Bill Gates and Warren Buffett having railroads in the U.S., buying up mass bulk transit capacity. And then we have Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos getting into food production, distribution, and grocery stores. And at the same time, just after they've got their investments secured, what do we see comes on the scene? A so-called existential crisis again, not on top of the climate change, which just wasn't getting people scared enough. An existential crisis propped up to create hysteria and justify the global leaders of the world to enact emergency powers and turn all of them into dictators in their countries, and to shut down the economy, thus creating hunger, starvation around the world. I think it was the UN said that they expected, the studies showed that a huge surge in hunger and starvation around the world. But these guys were prepared for that like 5, 10, 15 years ago. They started preparing for food production, distribution, even grocery stores. Now we have hunger. We have small businesses going out of business, small grocery stores. Is that a coincidence? Small farmers may be going out of business. I know I saw in the early stages of this this so-called pandemic, this hysteria machine, we saw farmers slaughtering pigs and cows or chickens in the northern U.S. because they could not get them to market. There were crops burnt, and now we have people hungry. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you would be watching in a dystopian sci-fi movie. Let's read on here. These guys were prepared to provide exactly the things that will now become very much needed. So here's an exclusive from April 2017. Let's have a read of this article here. That's the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board pension fund plans farmland retreat. Let's read on what this little article has to say from Toronto. Again, the links are always in the description, folks. If you want to read the full articles, a couple of these articles are rather long, but they are well worth the read. Canada Pension Plan Investment Board has decided against making further investments in farmland and is open to selling its existing portfolio after reviewing the operations. People familiar with the matter told Reuters this week a shift in strategy after some local farmers voiced concern. Okay, interesting. Let's have a look a little bit deeper here. I just expand that up for you. Reading from the top with me. However, its plans met with a backlash from some local farmers who believed they would be squeezed out of buying land themselves and feared rising rents if the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board pursued its mandate to maximize returns for Canada's pensioners. So when the CPPIB tried to buy more plans, the pushback was from smaller time farmers. Let's read on. The fund's move stands to be good news for some farmers and not so good for others. Those who want to expand the size of their farms are winners because they have one less tough bidder to compete against, but those hoping to sell the farm and retire may find fewer buyers. Now, this is from this is after the CPPIB decided to they announced that they would be selling their farmland, but not so fast. Let me see, did I miss a part here? Maybe I missed one part to grab a screen counter. Okay, it's coming up in the next article. Now this has gone on me here. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, the funds move stands for good news. Now why is this not advancing for me? I'm going to have to click forward here. Okay, let's have a look at this. This is another article, and this was in January 15th, 2021, talking about the same issue, but a little bit more information here. Bill Gates is about to change the way America farms. The co-founder of Microsoft and his wife make an auspicious debut on the 2020 Land Report 100 as America's largest private farmland owners, and we talked about this in previous sessions. Reading from the top, AgCoA acquired more than 100,000 acres in 9 states. This is a organization owned by a investment firm, I think, on Wall Street. I can't remember what that acronym stands for. But let's read on. By the time it was sold to the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board in 2013, AgCoA ranked as one of the leading institutional owners of row crop farmland in the United States. After AgCoA, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board acquired a second tranche of farmland assets when it paid $2.5 billion for a 40% stake in Glencore Agricultural Products in 2016. The very next year, however, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board began shedding the very same farmland assets as quickly as it acquired them. Interesting. And it did so quietly. And it did this so quietly, one might even say it was done in secret. And who do you think they sold it to? What is Bill Gates doing, and what is the Canada Pension Plan doing, making secret deals with farmland? Now, Justin Trudeau was in Prime Minister's office at that very time. Justin Trudeau is someone I would not trust to reliably deal with a toothpick. The guy lies with every word, with every breath. He's a grade 4 drama teacher and actor. He's a committed socialist, and he's trying to secure his own seat and in the towers of power in the coming globalist government, the one world government. So here we have Bill Gates, while Justin Trudeau is in power, connecting with the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board and buying up their farmland property assets. That's a little bit, I don't know, I find that kind of weird. At the same time as Bill Gates has been extending into his grocery store business, and Bill Gates, the same guy who lobbied for the lockdowns that caused all the economic problems, predictably causing hunger all around the world. And here he was just a year or a couple of years before buying huge tracts of farmland from the Canada Pension Plan. Isn't that interesting? Well, but I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Instead, there was no public announcement and no notice in the business press. So much for those small farmers who thought they might be able to buy some land and expand their farms. These guys have no interest in small business. The World Economic Forum, of which Bill Gates has a huge influence on, outright stated that the Great Reset doesn't include small business. They see the world run by big government and global corporations and nothing in between. They've stated it outright. We've talked about this in a previous coffee session. Let's read this again from the top. There was no public announcement and no notice in the business press. Instead, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board revealed in the fine print of a quarterly statement that it had sold to $520 million in U.S. farmland assets held by Agricultural Company of America. That's suspicious to me. But who am I? Let's read from the top. The day before, and gets interesting too, this guy Ebers, if you remember him, I think his first name, what was his first name? Bernie Ebers. He was the CEO of WorldCom, and they went in a big bust bankruptcy, and it was controversy here. He was signed over personal loans from WorldCom to basically gamble with stock options or something like this. I can't remember the details, but he ends up in jail for life and died recently. But the day before he went to prison, Ebers sold Angelina. This is part of the rich soil in, I think, Delaware, they said it was, rich soil farmland, for $32 million. The farm was subsequently sold to AgCoA, which was then acquired by the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. In 2017, Angelina Plantation changed hands one more time and became one of the principal farmland assets of the Gates' Cascade Investments portfolio. So there you go. What does it all mean? What does it all add up to? I don't know. Maybe Bill Gates is just a very smart, strategic businessman. But I don't think it looks good for us. They're destroying the middle class unless you work for big government and big corporations, and even then the downward pressure on salaries is going to come into play. The World Economic Forum, once they've sewn up all the other options for work, people are going to either take a job with big government or they're going to take a job with business, global corporations. And once that's all in place, the World Economic Forum's already been telling us for quite a while now, the better part of a year, that the people of the Western nations of the world, the first world, their standard of living will have to go down. I've talked about this before. They're going to tax it down. They've already spent a crap load of money, and they've said that they're going to transfer wealth to the third world countries. And with the same cast of characters comes up again in the third world countries. They've bought up businesses and they've created new businesses in third world countries. Bezos, that guy from Twitter there, I keep forgetting his name, CEO of Twitter, and Bill Gates, they have their businesses already ready to receive your tax dollars. Those transfers to third world countries are not going to go to the governments of those third world countries. They're going to be transferred into these projects owned by the super wealthy who created this hysterical pandemic in the first place. You have to admit, the strategy was super brilliant. It's actually quite a simple strategy. Create the fear, motivate the people to accept emergency powers in the hands of their leaders, destroy the economy, and then offer them jobs back in big government, offer the people jobs back in big government and big global corporations, and help the third world with your tax dollars by sending it to Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and that other guy's corporations that are already set up in the third world waiting to receive your increased tax dollars. It's brilliant. These guys are doubling their wealth year over year, and they'll double their wealth again with our tax dollars. So that's all I basically have for today. I'm going to just pop one Twitter quote up, and I'm going to keep an eye on the comments. If you have anything you want to ask me, this is probably a good time to do it. We're 47 minutes in. I will do my best to answer any question you put in the comments right now. And while I'm waiting to see that there, I'm just going to pop up. This was a tweet I put out, or a Facebook quote, on February 8th of 2016. This is exactly 1 year ago. Only in Canada, reading from the top, the government pays refugees 72% more than they pay senior citizens who've worked a lifetime. On top of that, our cheerless leaders pushed back the Canada Pension Plan from age 65 to age 67. Why don't our elites just throw the citizens in work prisons and give the money away to buy their Nobel I'm a Good Globalist Guy award? Well, they are. That's exactly what they're doing. They're creating work prisons for us in a global world where the elite see two classes of people, and maybe overseers of the work slaves. They're the elite ruling class. They'll have some overseers to take care of, make sure that the work slave population doesn't get out of hand, and analyze how to manipulate us into being happy with owning nothing, as the World Economic Forum says. You will have owned nothing. This is a direct quote from one of the World Economic Forum meetings. In 2030, they said, you will own nothing and you will be happy about it. This is exactly how slave owners viewed slaves in the height of slave plantations in the southern U.S. Slaves, they're happy. They're simple people, happy with nothing. That's how slave owners viewed their slaves. This is how the elite view you and I. So, I'm just going to scan up here and see if I see any questions. Here's one I see right away from Noah. How do we harness control this widespread paranoia on both sides? I think we need more calmness to assess things coherently. Yes, I agree, we all have to assess our own situations and respond in the way that we think is best for our particular situations. For me, that's coming to live where the cost of living is lower, the weather is great, and the people are more friendly to me than they are in my own country. So I am actually optimistic about my own life here. I'm having actually quite a good life here on a very low budget. I'm optimistic of my life, but that doesn't mean I'm going to close my eyes to what I think is going on in the rest of the world. And of course, I could get some details wrong. I hope I get some details wrong. But I don't see how we can actually practically stop the elite from creating the one world government that they want. I think they're going to get that. And the other thing I'll say about that question is that socialism, and this is I think an important issue, is that socialism really tries to make everybody's primary relationship and most important relationship with the state. Every individual is sort of for the best, the good of the state, sort of the better interest of society as a whole. This is what socialism pretends is they're doing that. Of course, it always ends up being for the best interest of those who are in the seats of power in that socialist state. Not for everybody. It's never worked out that way. But this is why socialism is inhumane, because people do not relate to a state. A state is just the collection of people who live under rules in that region. Your only place that you're going to get meaningful, important, sustaining, psychologically, spiritually, socially sustaining relationships is with other people who live around you. These are typically your family and friends, your work associates. These are human relationships. Those are the only real important relationships that human beings have. Human beings all have relationships with the things around them. You have a relationship with your car. You have a relationship with money. But those aren't the kinds of relationships that give you deep human meaning. And it's the relationships with one another that socialism undermines. It convinces, and the examples in history, we talked about this a day or two ago, last week, it convinces people to rat on their neighbors for the greater good, for the state, for the party, the Communist Party, if you will. It encourages children to turn in their parents for some often minor infraction against the state rules. Maybe their parents took an extra potato out of the potato bin or something. Oh, I better turn it in. And the motivation to do that is to get a reward. Now you're a better comrade than your neighbor. You're a better comrade because you told the authorities that your neighbor took an extra potato out of the communal potato bin. Or it's worse stuff like that. Oh, he said that comrade fearless leader is a flawed human being. Well, then comrade honest is going to find himself comrade dead. And this is what socialism does. So when it relates to that question for me is that in order to insulate yourself from this poisonous socialist movement that's going global, put your emphasis on the people around you, the people you interact with, the day-to-day life. These are the relationships that should be important to you. The relationship with your family, if you have, a lot of families have problems, that's very true. Relationships will always have problems, but they still will end up being the most important relationships in your life. So don't ever let these appeals to the greater good, the appeals to the party, the appeals to the political leaders become more important than the appeals to the people in your life, your friends, your family, your kids, your parents, the whole thing. This is one-to-one. That's where your human sustenance comes from. I probably spoke too long on that. Let me just look down if there's a couple of last questions here. Okay, I don't see any others. So with that, folks, I'll wrap it up. Oops, Okay, here's one question here. I missed it, it went up off the screen. How do you rule a society of millions if there is no state? I'm not an anti-statist. I'm not suggesting that we can organize millions and billions of people in the world without some form of structured governance. What form that takes, I think all forms will be flawed. You know, we're going to have problems no matter what form of governance we create. But what we do know is that socialism is particularly devilishly, evilly flawed. In every single case, it ends up causing pain and suffering in enormous scales. But I think the nation state functions fairly well. There could be problems with it. Maybe somebody has ideas on how we can sort of tweak up nation state functioning in the world. But it's nation states that are, the closer you get to where people actually live and the issues that group of people has in common, the closer the governance is to that, the more effective they are going to be able to respond to people's desires and needs. And nation states, when they get too big, they could be unwieldy for sure. But nation states tend to be a group of people living in a region with common interests. And so these things are naturally about encouraging or feeding, helping the needs of the people who live in that region. That doesn't mean that the state becomes more important than your personal relationships. Never should be, under any system. But the democratic capitalist system so far has provided the greatest increases of quality of life and the greatest security, the greatest growth and opportunity of any other system that we've seen in history. We've seen a lot of examples of socialism. We've not seen one successful example of a socialist communist system. They draw on hatred. So yeah, and the importance of having nation states with autonomy is that when one nation or leaders in a nation or a group of people start to get really radically out of hand, other nations tend to get upset about it. And they start to bring pressure to bear on those rogue nations, if you will, who are either getting abusive in human rights or are being politically or engaging in inappropriate wars with their neighbors. Other nations tend to gather together and say, well, we got to put a stop to this. And so it's the competition between nations to improve the quality of life for their own people, and the competition between nations keeps them honest, and it brings out the best in people. So I don't think going away from a world of nation states is a good idea. Going to a one world government, you've eliminated that form of competition. You've eliminated any outside force of which to keep nations and leaders honest. So after that, I'm just going to say good night or good day, good afternoon. Enjoy your day. Don't forget, tomorrow Janice will be with us to discuss the Jordan Peterson hit piece by that Decca Airhead or whatever her name was, and we'll go over that in some detail. And as I like to say at the end of each of these shows, folks, do something you love today and every day. If you don't have something you love, find something you love to do. It's your life. And I tell you that doing something I love to do every day got me through some of the worst periods of my life. I don't know how I would have got through without doing that every single day. So with that, I hope to see you again tomorrow, 1:30 same time, 1:30, I think it's Atlantic Savings Time. Checking your local time should be in the YouTube schedule there. Janice will be with us, and I think she has a lot to say about these crazy hit pieces on Jordan Peterson. So with that, I'll sign off for today and hope to see you all tomorrow.